Smith Show starts right now.
Wednesday, Stephen A. traveling down to Nashville. So Dave Rothenberg taking his spot, but he will be back tomorrow for one of the great days of the entire sports calendar. There, in my mind, is nothing better than the NFL draft. We've got it all over the place here on ESPN Radio. We're going to get into it. Connor Rogers, live 2 o'clock Eastern, to help us break everything down going on in the NFL draft. Locally, for the Jets and the Giants, of course, the New York teams, they go 3, they go 6, they go 17. You've got so many storylines. You know, the Raiders are telling everybody, get out of here. We don't even want you here. We don't even want you here. No scouts. You're not welcome. We want 2 guys to handle this. It's Mayock. It's Gruden. It's delicious is what it is. I'm sorry. I don't know if you're like this. I cannot get enough of the NFL draft. We'll get into it a lot today. 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776 now. Time for Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, and no contracts. I mean, there's so much going on in the world of sports. I mean, I know we don't, and I like hockey. We don't talk a ton of hockey, and we'll get to the NBA in a nanosecond. Did you see what happened last night in the NHL? San Jose and Vegas. There's a 3-goal lead in the third period. The Knights take a major 5-minute power play. San Jose scores 4 goals on the power play. They lead. Vegas comes back. They tie it up late. It goes to overtime. That's in a game 7. I will tell you this, and we'll get to the game 5 between Portland and OKC last night in just a moment, that there is, and I stand by this, and I love the NBA. I think we all do. There is nothing better than a game 7 in the NHL. I think you could almost argue that the NHL's postseason is the best postseason that we have going in sports. And that includes NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball. It's just so good. All right, but let's start with where we were last night, and that is Damian Lillard. Yeah, it's so funny. We analyze all these guys, and Durant and Kyrie Irving and these big players making big shots. I actually am at the point, and I don't know if you agree with this or not, where I think you can look at Damian Lillard and say he is unequivocally underrated. He is awesome. What do you have, 34 in the first half last night? He finishes with 50. He hits this bomb of a shot from 37 feet, or about 37 feet. How about this stat? And I just heard this very recently from a dear friend. He said 30-plus feet in this postseason. You know what Dame Lillard is shooting? Like you'd say, what is he, 2 for 10? No. He's about 8 for 12 is what he is. That is unbelievable. And that's Straight Talk Wireless, nationwide coverage on America's largest and most dependable 4G LTE networks. Let's take a listen to Dame Lillard, who, and you would agree, right? Of all the guys that we love in the NBA, that Lillard has to be right up there as far as just he's underrated. Wouldn't you say? I mean, he's underrated. That's how good he is. If I said to the average NBA fan, rank the top players for me, where do you think, realistically, the average NBA fan is going to put Dame Lillard? I bet you he's not a top 8. He's got to be. He has to be. He's sensational. And OKC, that's another story completely. But let's hear from Dame Lillard, his thought process on the final shot that he took to win the game and the series last night.
I didn't want to put it in the referee's hands, where if there was contact and maybe they get away with contact, or I end up having to take a tougher shot because there's, contact and they don't want to decide the game. So I was standing there looking at the rim, and I was like, this is a comfortable range. My trainer, Phil Beckner, we was working out the other night in OKC, and he was just like, just take a few deep ones, off the dribble. Let's shoot a few deep ones. And he was like, I'm telling you, you're going to hit one of these. When I was standing there, I was like, I'm going to shoot it. He was a little bit off of me, and I was like, it's enough space for me to just raise up and shoot it for game. And at the last second, he stepped towards me a little bit, and I was like, okay, I'm just going to pound, dribble, sidestep, and raise up, and I just had to let it fly, shoot the ball high in the air to give it a chance, and that's what I did.
And that's what he did, and away we go, and Portland moves on. So, and it's funny thing, there was a couple of series. I think the 2 series that realistically most people thought you could have an upset in the first round was this one. In fact, if you go to Vegas lines and look at the numbers, Oklahoma City was the favorite to win this series. Like the betting public, I mean, the favorite to win this series was OKC. And you saw that they were clearly outclassed, which is amazing to you because it's all about the star power, right? Now, Lillard is an elite star. But then when you go on from there and you look at what OKC has with Westbrook and George, and you know what's amazing? And I'm a Knicks fan, and let me just, I know it. It's a national show and everyone's listening, but can I just step back for a second? To watch Enes Kanter, of all, like the Knicks wanted nothing to do with him. They kicked him to the curb, and he wins. I guess he's playing with a separated shoulder last night. He's become, like a hero to the Blazers fans. And he comes out and he says, well, I'm just glad the Knicks released me. Great. Right? I mean, can't we just leave us alone? We don't need to be the team that's continually beat up over and over and over. But 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. So they move on, and they'll face the winner of Denver and San Antonio. And let's look at that series as well, because a ton of people loved San Antonio to win that series. And they were up 1-0, and they had a lead in game 2, and they let that get away. And then they win game 3, and you think, you know what, the Spurs, they're so grizzled, and they're always competent, and they always get it done. Well, you know what? They lost game 4, they lost game 5, they lost game 5 handily, and now they're looking at right in the eye, elimination. So it may not be the most attractive series, Portland and Denver, but it is the 2-3 in the Western Conference. Tonight, you have to figure, and I think we all agree, that Golden State is going to find their way to another series victory, finish up the Clippers in about 5, and that would be that. And then away you go. All right, let's get to some of these calls. 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. I want to play this soundbite because I think this is accurate from John Barry, NBA analyst here on ESPN, saying the Thunder, they just don't play that winning brand of basketball.
I think there's got to be a change in philosophy because 3 straight years first-round exits after they had the Warriors down 3-1. With Kevin Durant, obviously, 4 years ago, 3 exits in a row. I applaud the efforts of Russell Westbrook. He plays harder, maybe harder than anybody in the NBA. But there's got to be a realization that he's got to play different. I saw a graphic last night. He takes almost 37 or 38 shots in elimination games. I don't know what he had last night. I'm guessing somewhere in the 30s. That's not winning basketball.
Well, here's the thing, and this is what we talk about. Big shot, big moment. You want the ball in Kyrie Irving's hands, right? There's no two ways about that. You want the ball in Damian Lillard's hands, and we've come to learn that. And I think, a lot of people slept on him for a while, and now that's not even up for debate. Do you really want the ball in Russell Westbrook's hands? And I love Westbrook, and to average triple-double year after year after year is unbelievable. But, there's something between doing it game 77 against the Charlotte Hornets when they're on a back-to-back and taking over in a big moment when your team desperately needs you. And again, I think that Westbrook is just nothing short of a sensational player. But I think you have to start to raise some questions about him because, John Barry's right. They've had a lot of disappointing endings to seasons recently. And who does that fall on? Well, if it's his team, and we're going to give him all the credit when things work out well, then who gets the blame when they don't? 888-SAY-ESPN. Let's get to some of your calls. We'll get to the NFL draft. There's a ton to do. Let's go to James in Jersey. James, you're on the Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio.
Hey, how you doing, Dave? Just a quick thing. I thought it was pretty funny watching the interview at the end of the game to see how salty Paul George was, saying that it's a bad shot. Coming from him and that team, I don't think anybody in the NBA takes a worse shot than him and Russell Westbrook. It's absolutely – I'm sitting there and I'm listening to what he's saying, and I was like, this guy has to be out of his mind because what he's talking about, they've been doing the whole entire season. So that's why they're not even in the NBA playoffs no more. They take the worst shot of all time.
They take awful shot. And you know what the truth is, and thanks for the call, James, is if you watch Westbrook, he's not a great shooter. Like, I still will honestly tell you that as far as athleticism is concerned, that I don't think that there's anyone more athletic than him in the NBA. I guess LeBron just beats everyone just because he's what he is. But realistically, if you look at Russell Westbrook and just how agile and gazelle-like he is, and he can take the ball from end to end, and I guess Antetokounmpo is one of those guys as well. But you understand my point, that he athletically makes it look so easy continuously, but in the biggest moments, let's be fair. If we're going to give Guy credit when he deserves it, and he deserves a ton of credit, But if we're going to give him this credit when he deserves it, you gotta rip him when he's not great. And Russell Westbrook has not been great in the postseason as of late. And that's fair. Let's go to Eric in Jersey. Eric, you're on ESPN Radio.
Hey, what's going on, y'all? First time caller, love the show.
Appreciate it, man. What's going on today, buddy?
Yeah, I just wanted to talk to you about Russell Westbrook and Dame. The reason why everybody's slack on Dame is because we've always seen him lose. Like, always seen him lose. Never seen him really win. He sort of got that Carmelo effect. Like, he's always been great, but never great enough.
Yeah, but I think that changes now, Eric. I think watching him play in this series with the potential of, listen, Denver's good, but I don't think it's a game that they can't win, a series that they can't win. He's great. There's no two ways about it. I mean, Dame Lillard, win or lose, moving forward, has established himself as, I think, without a doubt, a top 10 player in this league.
Top 10?
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, I feel like you're going to take a lot of people over Dame, man.
Oh, come on. Where would you? I mean, yes, I'll give you LeBron. I'll give you Antetokounmpo. Where are you going?
You're going to go Antetokounmpo. You're going to go LeBron. You're going to go Anthony Davis.
All right.
You're gonna go KD. You're gonna go Steph. You're gonna go Klay Thompson. You're gonna go the whole starting five of Golden State.
No, you're not going the whole starting five of Golden State.
No, I'm just joking.
No, and I don't even know if I'm giving you Klay Thompson, but I'll give you Steph and I'll give you Durant. Where else are you going? And I'll give you LeBron and Antetokounmpo.
Durant, LeBron, Antetokounmpo, James Harden.
All right.
You got we got big man off the Sixers.
Embiid.
The one.
Well, here's my question for you. On a game that they're both healthy, I'll give you that. But all the time, Joel Embiid is not healthy.
That's true.
All the time. So if I got to bank on a guy that's going to be injured, I mean, he's already been injured this postseason. I don't even get game after game out of him.
And he still be balling.
I understand that, but if you're going to give me the choice, and thanks for the call, Eric, that I got to choose between a guy that's going to give me 82 games and be terrific, or a guy that's going to give me 60 games and I never know when he's going to be healthy or not, that to me that's not a debate. Give me the guy that's going to be healthy every single game, time and time and time again. Gabe in Atlanta. Gabe, you're on ESPN Radio.
Hey, Dave. Big fan of you and Stephen A. It was kind of a minor comment, but wanted to just comment on your fact that NHL playoffs is probably the best viewing product.
I love it.
In terms of the major sports, because I'm born and live in Atlanta, don't have the Thrashers anymore, big SEC and NFL baseball fan. But you told me the year when the Rangers and the Kings were in the Stanley Cup Finals, and every single one of those games was an overtime or double overtime game. I was like, I need to tune into playoff hockey every year. And
here's the point, right? You're not even a Rangers or a Kings fan, correct?
No,
right.
Not at all. I don't watch regular season hockey.
Exactly. And I think that a lot of people, I mean, last night, and that's the thing about it, every time someone gets the puck past the red line in Game 7 overtime, you're at the edge of your seat.
Absolutely.
It's awesome. You got anything else, or was that it, Gabe?
No, and just a comment from the last caller. If you look in the next 5 to 8 years and if you're building an NBA team and you want somebody on your team, I put Dame top 5 looking for the next 5 to 8 years, building a team around. That's my last word.
All right, good stuff. That, of course, is Gabe down in Atlanta. I don't know what you're saying, Nuno. You're spouting something over there, but nobody really knows. I'm going to take another call because I'm not sure if that's what you're looking for. So I will take another one. Let's go to Isaac in Arkansas. Isaac, you're on ESPN Radio. What's up, Isaac?
Hey, man, I just got to chime in on this. What's the biggest issue with Oklahoma, man? It's not Westbrook. I'm telling you, it's the chemistry of the team.
But where do you think that starts? Where do you think that starts?
Well, for one, they got to stop ball hogging. They have to.
But Isaac, where does that start? Where does the whole ball hogging mentality begin?
It's going to come. It started. It has to come from Paul George, Westbrook.
It's Westbrook,
and then they have to utilize Steve. They have to utilize Smith down in the post.
Who?
They have to utilize the rest of their team.
Who do they have to utilize down in the post? I mean, Adams. See, the thing with Adams is not a guy that's going to wind up taking 15 shots a game. Adams is a guy that's going to clean up loose change and get a rebound and lay it in or block a shot. Like he does the dirty work. The truth is, you're right, Isaac, and thanks for the phone call. I don't need to see Westbrook and George attempting 60 shots a game. But who else do I want shooting? Do I want Dennis Schroeder putting up 15 shots a game? Do I want Jeremy Grant putting up a ton of shots? I mean, I guess the question is, do they really have that next guy in line? But you're right. They take a lot of shots, Oklahoma City. If I was an OKC fan, see, for me, if I'm an OKC fan, I never get over that absolute collapse. Up 3-1 against Golden State. I would never get over that. There are certain games as a fan of a team that you look at, you're like, I'd never get over that. Like last night. Now, I know that there are brand new infancy stages of their career or tenure here, and that's Vegas. But if you're Vegas and you have that kind of a lead and you let that get away, we have Stephen A. is on the phone. Delightful. All right, let's bring him on, the host of the show, Stephen A. Smith. What's up, Stephen? How are you, man?
Hey, how are you, man? How's everything going?
I got to be honest, Stephen. I think I'm holding down the fort very well today.
Well, listen, you always are, and I appreciate it, and I thank you for it. I'm traveling to the NFL draft, but I knew you had to be talking about Damian Lillard and Russell Westbrook and those boys, so I thought I'd call in the first segment of the show. I'm right now trying to decide, Dave, whether that was the biggest – that was the best shot, not the biggest because there have been bigger moments. Michael Jordan has hit a game winning the NBA Finals. Derek Fisher hit a game winning against San Antonio deep into the playoffs, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm trying to figure out right now if I've seen a better game-winning shot, buzzer beater to win a playoff game in NBA history than what I saw last night.
It was sensational.
I can't think of one.
Yeah, I think you're right. It was sensational. And the thing is, he did it against, and don't you agree, and I started the show by saying this, he's underrated. Like, as great as he is, he doesn't get the conversation, Steven, that I think he deserves. He is a great talent. He's elite. He carries that team. He's a wonderful player. And honestly, as much as we talk about so many of these guys in the NBA who deserve a lot of love, I think that we do not include him as much as we should with the great players.
We have to. I'll go a step further. You know, I interviewed him for my NBA for my SportsCenter special about a week and a half ago, and he and I had a lengthy discussion while we were in L.A. And listen, this is a guy that I think warrants strong consideration to be first team All-NBA, even over Steph Curry. Here's why. Steph Curry averages 27. He averages 25.9, 26 points a game. 7 assists per game. He doesn't shoot 47% from the field like Steph Curry does. He shoots 44%. He doesn't shoot 43% from three-point range like Steph Curry does. He shoots 36%. But he asked the question, and I'll ask it for him. Who has done more with less?
No one.
And that is what I think we've got to come to that conclusion. When you look at Steph Curry, you know, debating with Max earlier today, I'm like, Steph Curry's phenomenal. He's the greatest shooter I've ever seen. But it does help that you have Klay Thompson and Kevin Durant. And it does help that you have a point forward who's incredibly cerebral as a basketball player in Draymond Green as a point forward that gets underestimated. And a system designed by Steve Kerr that also helps you. You're Damian Lillard. You played 96% of the games in your career. You've only missed 24 games in 7 years. You played 80 games this year. You're the number one option. Everybody knows it. You've had to play games without Nurkic. You've had to play games without C.J. McCollum. And you have done what this man has done and averaging what he is averaging and leading them to 53 wins in the season and giving them back-to-back number 3 seeds in the Western Conference. And, oh, by the way, 6 playoff game winners in NBA history. 2 of them were by Michael Jordan. Another 2 was by Damian Lillard. At some point in time, when do you look at him, at least for this season, and say, excuse me, he doesn't deserve to be first team All-NBA this season, where you consider what he's had to work with, what he's been working against, with CP3 and James Harden in Houston, with the Big Three in Golden State, with Russell Westbrook and Paul George in Oklahoma City. At some point in time, you do have to ask yourself, what does this man have to do to make first team?
Yeah, he really is amazing. And today would be the day that you would pile all the accolades on him. But, you know, we watched the other night. James Harden goes 3 for 20. I think misses over. He was over his first 14 or 15 or whatever the number was, Stephen A. And you think to yourself, if Lillard ever gave you a game where he was 3 for 20, they'd probably lose the game by 27 points.
That's right. I mean, when Max was making the case this year, well, you know what? Even without Steph Curry, the Golden State Warriors haven't been what we thought they would be. Well, what would the Portland Trailblazers be without Lillard?
They'd be nothing. They'd be terrible.
They'd be one of the worst teams in the league.
Absolutely.
So I just think the time has arrived for us to look at him and to look at him considerably differently than we have looked at him. And also ask ourselves this question. If Lillard were playing in L.A. or New York, what would we be saying?
Oh, my God. I mean, you know the Knicks as well as I do. If he played on the Knicks, the city would – there's passion and emotion around a 15-win, 17-win Knicks team. If Dame Lillard played for the Knicks, you'd put statues up around New York about him, for him. He's that good.
I gotta tell you, I look at him right now, and listen, he's off the stadium. He doesn't want to leave Portland. He loves it there. He's not thinking about going anywhere. Everybody needs to get over it. But what I was shocked by last year is that I asked him to hypothetically entertain, just for my edification. Yeah, I know you don't want to leave Portland. I know you're not going anywhere. But if you had a choice to pick between the two, what would you want, L.A. or New York? L.A. with LeBron or the New York Knicks? At that time, he actually told me the New York Knicks. He said it would be New York. The challenge of New York, of resurrecting that franchise. I don't run from that stuff, and I never will. That's what he said at the time. He said, but you can dream on because I'll never want to leave Portland.
Well, they got you can't even see a diamond in the rough anymore. I mean, he is a bona fide absolute superstar. So let me ask you this. When you look at OKC, and they were favored in the series. I mean, a lot of people, say, well, Portland was the better team and they had home court. But in Vegas, Oklahoma City was the favorite team. How disappointing is this season to lose again in the first round for them?
It's incredibly disappointing on several levels. Number one, since Kevin Durant has left, they haven't won a first-round series. They haven't even won a road playoff game. Kevin Durant lost his last 3 road playoff games against Golden State in that series before he departed. Since then, there have been 9 more with Russell Westbrook. He hasn't won one single road game. That's number one. Number two, you have a backcourt with 2 stars. Russell Westbrook making $35 million, Paul George making $30 million. That's $65 million. You're going home for the second consecutive year in the first round. Number three, you had a 15-point lead with 7 minutes and 12 seconds left. You had an 8-point lead with over 3 minutes left. And you lost. Paul George missed 2 pivotal free throws down the stretch. Russell Westbrook, you got the ball in your hands, but you're shooting less than 40% from the field. Paul George had just drilled a pull-up perimeter jump shot. He had been hot all game. He had 36. You don't give him the ball. You call your own number. These are the kind of things that you look at because Russell Westbrook is unquestionably a superstar talent in this league. He cannot be guarded. He's phenomenal. He's a phenomenal athlete. He goes 100 miles per hour. He never cheats you with effort. He wants it badly. He goes after it. So there's never any questions in regards to that stuff. But a consistent question against him has been his decision-making. And last night, glaringly, in the last minute of that game, was a decision-making faux pas because Paul George should have had the ball in his hand. He's not some secondary star. Paul George is a star. He's a star at the level of Russell Westbrook, some would argue. And with him being the hotter man on the court, another one of your max players on that roster, paid to be in these moments, you have to give him the ball, considering the kind of game he was having compared to the kind of game you were having. And the fact that that wasn't the decision that Russell Westbrook and or Billy Donovan did not make is going to be something that comes down on the shoulders of Russell Westbrook, whether he likes it or not. So now we're sitting here, and a year removed from talking about whether or not Russell Westbrook was one of the top 5 players in the NBA, we are now talking about whether or not he's a top 5 point guard because decision-making falls into that equation. And you've got Steph Curry, you've got Kyrie Irving, you've got Damian Lillard now, you've got CP3. You're looking at the top 5 point guards in the game, and there's actually a question mark as to whether or not Russell Westbrook is in that conversation. That is not a good thing for the Oklahoma City Thunder. It damn sure is not a good thing for him.
Well, Stephen A., always a pleasure. Enjoy Nashville. It's a great city, and enjoy the draft, and I hope that the Giants can do well down there. So thanks as always, and I'll do the best I can to keep us afloat here.
Good looking out, Dave. Thank you so much as always.
All right. That, of course, Stephen A. The NBA playoffs are on ESPN Radio. Tune in tonight for Game 5 as Durant and the Warriors host the Clippers. That's presented by Indeed. Coverage begins at 10 o'clock Eastern on most ESPN radio stations. All right. So you heard it from Stephen A. You've heard it from me. I mean, this guy's underrated. I mean, there is no two ways about it. Damian Lillard, underrated. And maybe have we overrated Westbrook, George, and that combination just a little bit? Because it's another season of coming up short in the big spot. It's the Stephen A. Smith Show. Dave Rothenberg filling in ESPN Radio and ESPN News.
The Stephen A. Smith Show is being brought to you by Barbasol. Hey, sports fans, Barbasol is offering you a chance to